Okay, final feelings for Georgia and Alabama. Huge game. But there's going to be a lot of big games this season, not just for Georgia, but for Alabama as well. They've got Missouri coming up. They've got Tennessee coming up, LSU, Auburn, whatever. Both these teams play Auburn. For the Dogs, they still have this game, Tennessee, Texas, Ole Miss, Auburn, Florida. So there's a lot of big games left to be played, but it's going to be hard to find one with the buildup of this one. These two teams are undefeated. Depends on which ranking you're talking about. Georgia could be considered the number one team in the country or number two, depending on AP or coaches poll. Alabama, obviously, top five. So just Bama and Georgia alone, the most watched series in college football, there's a lot of drama building up to this thing. I expect anywhere from, I don't know, like 13, 14 million people to watch this game. That's a lot of people. So I expect Georgia to win this game, but I don't think it's a certainty by any stretch of the imagination. They're about a point and a half, point and a half to 2.5 point favorite to win this game. The money is on Georgia, if that matters to you at all. I don't know, but I think this is pretty simple. If Georgia goes out and executes, they will win the game. If they don't, they'll lose. It's that simple. There's so much that Alabama can do explosively on offense. It will be very challenging for the Georgia defense to hang in there. I mean, you're going to be on the road. Those pom poms will be waving in sync with one another. I've been to Bryant Denny a few times. It's a very challenging place to play, and the buildup for this game is going to be pretty significant. Now, the sort of wise guys view of this is different than the talking class. The talking class is at least nudging, if not fully picking Alabama. There's a lot of that. I understand why. I mean, you're talking about a game where they're narrowly the underdog at home. They've not been an underdog at home, I think, since 2007 or 2008, whatever, 2007, I think, with LSU or Tennessee, really late in the season. They were favored against Georgia in 2007 when Georgia went down there and beat them. These two teams have only played at Bryant Denny 3 times this century, and both of them, or all of them, well, 2 of the 3 were really good games that came down to the end. One of them was a decisive Alabama victory, but the other 2 were tight Georgia wins, which if Georgia wins, I would expect it would be tight. I don't think, there's a couple of things to watch for here. First of all, the third quarter. Georgia's been really good in the third quarter. They have I don't know if I would call it exploded on Clemson, but they firmly took control of that game and made it just too difficult for Clemson to win. In Kentucky, that's when they scored their first points, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong about that, but that's when they sort of got it going on offense. That was a challenging game. And then, of course, Tennessee Tech. But it just tells you with the Clemson game and the Kentucky games specifically that, Georgia's going to make adjustments. And Alabama will too. I think the other challenge here, globally speaking, is you've got a lot of offensive minds coming into the league or already in the league. I mean, you got DeBoer coming in and Sarkisian coming in. That's not something that Kirby's been dealing with. He's been dealing with it, but those 2 are new. I mean, and there's no question that Sark is really good. Georgia scored 14 against Clemson, 21 against Tennessee Tech, and 3. No, it wasn't their first points against Kentucky. I misspoke. But in the third quarter as well, that last drive of the third quarter set up the touchdown right at the beginning of the fourth for Georgia. So, I expect Georgia to be pretty good in the third quarter. Alabama's just been pretty steady. Their fourth quarter has been better, but that was because of their surge against USF. And if you watch that game specifically, I would be concerned on the back end if I were Alabama. Let's talk about a couple of things first. Hey, Christmas is not that far around the corner. We still have some double dogs available. This is a great Christmas item, by the way. The inside story of Georgia's national championship team in 2022. I have to be specific now. The 2022 national championship team. How Kirby Smart's Dogs reached perfection in 2022. Forward by Jeff Foxworthy, famous Georgia fan and comedian. So the link for that is down below. When you watch Georgia play, against Kentucky, they did not win the line of scrimmage. It was just like the Missouri game in 2022 where they didn't win it. And they paid for that in that game. They nearly lost that game because of that. When you look at Carson Beck, he's just got to be more consistent. And, it's not asking a lot for Carson Beck to be consistent. I mean, he's a really good quarterback. I don't think that's at all asking too much of Carson. That's kind of what he does. But 160 yards against Kentucky, we've just not seen Carson really. We did not see him play unbelievable that game. There's a lot of talking head that's based almost exclusively off what Georgia did to Kentucky, ignoring that Carson Beck was the SEC Player of the Week against Clemson a couple of weeks before that. So that's what we do in media, and I mean, it's what it is, and that's fine. It's what have you done for me lately? Janet Jackson, not Jody Watley. Although Jody Watley was very good. Let's not sleep on Jody Watley. Jody Watley was legit. I can't believe that I didn't say Janet Jackson. Obviously, I know. I know Janet Jackson. I know Miss Jackson, actually, I should say. But this game is going to come down to execution. Alabama did not execute against South Florida. There, a lot of people, including guys on Dog Post, were talking about how Alabama got run on by South Florida by their quarterback, not by the run game, not by the running backs necessarily. There were a lot of, like quarterback follows and like read option. Georgia doesn't do that. So if they are going to try, we're going to see Carson Beck run the likes of which we've never seen him run before. I mean, like, that was what USF was doing. But what USF was not doing that was there was hitting the deep ball. I mean, I talked about this in Final Feelings over on the site, and it's a great time right now to be a member of Dog Post. It's $1 right now for 30 days. You can just try us out for $1. It's a great deal. And in the article over on the site, I talked about how with South Florida, I mean, they should have had, it's right here, I'm going to put it on the screen. Had the Bulls done had the Bulls hit on those deep balls and they were wide open, they'd have been up 17-7 at the end of the first quarter. Like, if you're losing 10-7 or like 7-0, definitely is nothing to even think about. If you're the better team and you're losing at the first quarter, you don't know what happened. It could have been pick six, a fumble at the one. I mean, there's a million things. If you were down 17-7, that'd have been problematic. And Alabama should have been down 17-7. Now, the first touchdown USF got, they earned that one. But the fact that they left those points on the field, that was why Alabama won the game. They'd have been in a deep hole in the fourth quarter, and would they have come back the way they did? I don't know. So we've seen both teams not play well this season. We've seen both teams beat up on a bad opponent, which was Tennessee Tech in Georgia's case, and Western Kentucky for the Tide. And then we've both seen them win. Clemson is not the same as Wisconsin. Clemson is a legitimate top 15 team. They may or may not win their league. Wisconsin is middle of the pack, probably at best, top 60% of the Big Ten. They're not a good team. They do not have the capability to run with the Southeastern Conference teams. You could see that immediately. That they lost their quarterback in the first part of that game didn't help, but they weren't winning that game no matter what. So we've seen these teams play, similar games, and they've actually had similar the results have all been wins, but they've looked bad at times and they've looked really good at times, and then they've looked like whatever at times in blowouts. So why is Georgia favored? Well, I mean, I think that's a good question. I think most people think, even with Tate Ratledge out and you may or may not have Mikael Williams, I don't know, but my suspicion is you're going to see Mikael Williams try to play. I mean, it's kind of hard to someone like that who knows how critical this game is to the season is probably going to try to play. He's listed as questionable. Alabama's got everybody at least probable. So 2 defensive linemen for Georgia, are listed as questionable. You're going to get Brinson back. I would say Brinson is going to play for sure. Williams is less likely to play. We'll see. Hall is the one that I think it's hard to get a finger on, just because Kirby's been very hesitant about him. Mikael Williams, we'll see. I mean, not having him in this game is not ideal. It's just not an ideal situation, but it's there for Georgia if they want to do it. Now, if they play well, they'll win. If they don't play well, they'll have to grind it out. And that won't be easy. And if they don't play well, they will not win. I mean, this is not a situation like Kentucky where you don't play well and you still grind it out. Nah, man, that's, there's so much to look at and see and all this stuff. So it's essentially a slightly favored to Georgia coin flip game. This isn't a situation where for sure, like, with Kentucky or, whoever. This isn't even like Clemson where it's you're anywhere from a 12 to 14 point favorite and you should win. Like, there's no excuse. It's not that Georgia, quote, should win. I mean, I don't know how to put it. But it's not like on the scale of you should win. It's not at the high end. It's this is going to be a fight. And I think it's good that they played at Kentucky. I think it's good that they got down. I think it's good they had to grind that out. I think they know they can't take anything for granted. They know what road games are like. They've got 2 more left that are going to be top 10 road games. I mean, Georgia's going to play 3 games on the road against top 10 teams. That's what's going to happen. And, I think the other thing is, too, for both these teams, they should view this as an opportunity. I mean, if Alabama wins this game, they will lose probably. I mean, before the playoff, Alabama's probably going to lose. I would imagine everybody in the SEC is going to lose. But the question is, how many wins that matter do you have? And, for Georgia, they have a win right now that matters, which is Clemson. If they beat Alabama, I would say it's going to be hard to keep Georgia out if they have those 2 wins. That would be my opinion / years of expertise, decades of expertise in all of this. For Alabama, if they win this game, I don't see how they're out. They're just not enough games for them to lose. And you have, at that point, what would be the best win in college football. You could make the argument if Georgia wins this game, they have the best 2 wins in college football. I'd have to look at the rankings. I mean, Texas over Michigan, is that better? Texas over Michigan on the road, is that better than Georgia over Clemson? I would say probably. Texas over Michigan on the road, is that better than Georgia over Alabama on the road? No, it's not. So, you'd have the best win for sure, maybe 1.5 best wins. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Every time I've been to Bryant-Denny, it's a great atmosphere. It was not a great atmosphere in 2020. I mean, Kirby was talking about that game the other day. That was actually, for me, that was extremely sad. I know what it's like in the SEC stadiums. And in a way, everybody was like, that season was robbed from everyone, including Alabama, which won a national championship that year. And you didn't get to experience it in person. And what would it have been like for, Georgia, Florida, if it had been, I don't know. There were so many injuries in that game for Georgia. It was, they were up 14-0 or 14-0. Well, I can't remember. But when I was last at Bryant-Denny, it's not at all like what it's going to be. And what you're going to see is full-blown combat with people cheering like their life depends on the outcome of this thing. And Alabama knows, the folks, you can see it in the comments, they're scared to death that they'll lose this game. And that Kalen DeBoer is not the answer. That's what they're scared to death of. The truth is, he probably is the answer, number one. And number two, how can you know that from game 4? Like, we don't win or lose. How can you know that? I mean, it looks like a really good hire to me. But this is Kalen DeBoer's real first test of this league. And this league is tough. Really good teams can go to Tuscaloosa and win. 2010 Auburn, 2019 LSU. You can go do it. It's not easy. It's not easy. John Manziel in 2012. I don't know if that was a great Texas A&M team, but they were, they had a great player. So you can go do it, but if you're not a good team, you're not winning. Like, it's not happening. And we also will find out if, Georgia's lost a step. We will find out. Everybody's ready to say that Alabama's lost a step. We'll find out if Georgia's lost a step, or if they just can't beat Alabama, right? And the people aren't going to like hearing this, but you don't have to beat Alabama to win a national championship. I mean, that you don't have to. You know, more often than not, that's been the case, but you don't have to. I mean, 2022 Georgia is staring you right in the face. You know, but with the exception, I think, of that year and maybe 2007 LSU, I think, did beat Alabama. The last 15 years, you did have to beat Alabama. And the other thing is too, if you knew you're going to play Alabama twice, of course, and you knew you were guaranteed only one win, it wouldn't be this one, right? This is not the one that's a terminal game, and the next one might not be either. And for all this talk about, you know, Georgia could play Texas 3 times, I don't know why we're talking like that. Like, I don't know why people say that. Georgia could play Alabama 3 times. They could play Tennessee 3 times. They could play Texas. They could play Ole Miss 3 times. You know, there's a lot of people. They could play 3 times. Well, that group, they could play 3 times, and they could lose the wrong game, which is something Kirby's been really good at, not losing the wrong game. He's really been good at that. I mean, the Auburn game in 2017, they got blown out on the road, then got away from him in the third quarter. That wasn't the wrong game to lose. The wrong game to lose was the terminal game in the SEC championship. But I do think that this is an important game for Georgia. Like, it doesn't. Kirby needs this, it seems to me. And he doesn't have it yet. And that's the important part is Georgia going to go out there and execute? And these last 2 weeks and the 365 days that led up to this with recruiting and development, and then these last 2 weeks of getting ready for this game, that will be what determines what happens on Saturday night. You cannot pull a rabbit out of your hat. There's not going to be anybody with hats, no rabbits, none of that stuff. You got to go do it. And I think they will, but I got to see it to believe it too. I mean, to some degree, it is challenging to understand why Georgia's favored, but that's not magic. Those people do that for a reason, and they are vastly more correct about those lines than they are wrong. I mean, it happens, but usually not. So I expect this to be extremely tight, a classic game. And my suspicion is no matter who wins this game, we will come out of it trying to make excuses for the loser and how they belong in the playoff. That's my guess. Now, if it's a blowout, that's a different story. But my suspicion is everybody wants these two alive at the end of the year. And when I say everybody, I mean Disney. So they're running the show in many ways. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the ride home, riding home. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.